kind of philosophical idea around how you look at innovation and entrepreneurship. So those are some of the things that are fascinating. We can talk more about Swedish society as we go along as well. It's as you know, quite different from the United States, even though there's a lot of affinities as well. But the course itself, and I should say maybe a few things about my background as well. I teach mostly international marketing, but also some general courses on international business. I teach a lot of courses that have some sort of client engagement, both for undergraduate students and graduate students. So this is really what I, kind of do here at the university in international business. I tend to engage a lot with the external community, and that's exactly the same for the course that I'm teaching in Sweden in August. So again, that really runs through this whole experience. So let me get to some of the particulars first. I'm sure you're very interested in whether this is really logistically going to work out for you or not. So let me just take you to some of those specific details first. So as I've indicated already, this was conceptualized as a course in the Healthcare MBA program. I've also had other students. I've had global MBAs, I've had PMBAs, AMBAs, MHA students as well. So it's been a wide variety of students, but again, it was thought of as a course for the Healthcare MBA students. So it's online. It's completely online up until a point when we travel to Sweden. So you'll be working virtually in your teams on these consulting projects, virtually with a client in Sweden, and then eventually go to Sweden, potentially meet each other for the first time, work in your teams, work with a client live there, and also, of course, do a lot of different site visits, and then come back at the end of the trip, which is really only a week long, so it's intended to help people who have busy schedules and maybe can get off for a week and do the travel then. So we then at the end will come together and we'll do presentations for the clients, giving them recommendations for the particular problem that they might have had that they wanted us to look at. And oftentimes these problems relate to really getting traction in the United States, has been either market entry to the U.S. or market expansion to the United States. So those have been the major problems that we have worked on in previous classes. So the travel dates are from Saturday, August 6th, so that's when you would be leaving the U.S. and arrive then on that Sunday, the 7th. We'll have some activities on Sunday, more, getting to know the city. There'll be a welcome dinner, just really more social, relaxing. And then Monday, usually we work with a client, so we have a work day, maybe one site visit, but then a work day with a client. So you come together with your specific team and your client, talking about where you are at this point in the consulting project, and give them some initial ideas that you're thinking of, and you will have previously also actually sent them a preliminary report at that point in time. And then during the week, we'll be going to different sites, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But again, all of them have to do with healthcare in one way or another, or they might be cultural in nature. They might have to do with Sweden as a country. So we've had visits, for example, at the Swedish Institute, which is the organization that really owns Brand Sweden, the nation brands. Is really interesting in these meetings when we talk to the people who are actually in charge of the marketing strategy of the nation of Sweden. And we've also been to the parliament, been invited there to meet with an elected official, and that's also been very powerful actually to really get the inside scoop on how the government in Sweden works and how politics work in general. So it's also, again, for somebody who's studying international business, is really relevant and really very much pertaining to anything you do in international business, international marketing in particular, really understanding that part of the environment that you're going into a new country. So it will be a busy schedule, and that's usually the major complaint. People are usually quite appreciative, but also they do feel that it's a busy schedule. And in a way, it has to be. We want to take every opportunity we have there to actually go to these site visits and visit with companies and work with a client. So the week itself in Sweden is quite intensive. So I will put that out there right from the beginning. As I go along, feel free to put questions in the chat box, and Lisa will help me keep track of things in case they are lost in some other sphere of the Q&A or something like that. So So feel free to interrupt with any questions that you have as you go along. Now, thinking about the course a little bit more in detail, it's a 4.5 credit course, and I told you already that it's online, it's a study abroad class, it also has a very strong consulting component. So the learning is a little bit different from a regular course. We'll certainly have some materials, and there will be some sessions ahead of travel where we talk about the healthcare system in Sweden, healthcare innovation, clusters, concepts, and international business. But a lot of the learning would really happen through your research and through your engagement with the client. So the whole idea is to utilize as much of the theory, as much of many of the frameworks as you can, that you have from business in general, from international business in particular, and bring them into practice and really implement them in this kind of test case with a real client. So in a way, it's a safe environment to test your international business and your academic muscle in a way on these clients. Again, you're protected because it's a course, it's an academic adventure in a sense, but also you have the real clients there to really gauge your professionalism and to help you kind of propel some of those capacities forth. Now, just going back to some of the clients we've had in the past, and I've listed some of them here. Feel free to look into them later. We've worked with quite a few at this point. Again, it's 3 years of client engagement. So the first year we worked with a company that is the world leader in eye tracking, and we were a fairly large group, well, not terribly large, but around maybe 15 students or so. We all worked for the same company. It was a fairly large company. And we were divided up working on different types of projects with that one client. So it was a lot of synchronization, a lot of coordination between the teams. So that was one kind of experience. And then in the next couple of years, we've had several, 2 or more clients every year. And again, you can look a little bit more here on the screen in terms of the types of businesses we have covered, the types of products we have worked with. So they've gone from, mobile apps to very specific medical equipment to more, chemistry and pharmaceuticals. So a wide variety of products. And some of them are very much cutting edge. Some of them have been fairly small, fairly early on in their development, but others already have international operations. So again, a wide variety. The key thing that I want to accomplish when I select clients is to try to have clients that are small enough that the students and the teams get to actually work with higher ups in the company. So typically students have either worked with CEOs, marketing directors, people of that sort. So you really get to kind of get behind the scenes and get to pick the brain of people who are in executive level positions. So I think that's the most powerful part of this course, is not just going to a huge company and kind of being buried in all the activities that they have and not really having the access that you want to and not get to think with people about these problems that you're working on. So to me, that's the most powerful way of experiencing these international consulting projects for sure. So that's really done on purpose, and that's the model that I really enjoy. I know that some students might want to be able to put a big name multinational corporation on their CV, and that's absolutely fine. It's totally valid and it makes sense. But I feel like there's, much better quality in the actual work and the actual engagement with the client if the clients are a little bit smaller, and when you can actually then engage with higher level executives in the company. Many times it has been actually founders of companies, and they're now, growing, trying to get to a different phase of their development. So that's kind of my philosophy behind the types of clients that I have chosen.
There's a question that was posed that I put in the chat box for you.
No, we have not had those types of clients. It's really much more business-oriented versus policy-oriented. So, if there are students who are interested in that, we can certainly look at site visits. We can look at clients that engage maybe those kinds of think tanks and centers that you're mentioning. But it's ultimately an international business course, so it really has to do with, products and services crossing borders, going from one country to the other, and kind of investigating, exploring what the hurdles and obstacles are and how to then set up a very focused and targeted marketing strategy for a company in a different country. So it's really quite focused when it comes to that. We don't venture out beyond really what the core topic is, which is within the discipline of international business. But again, if students have particular interest, I'll certainly be more than willing to try to bring some of that in as well. Absolutely. Okay, so I just put together a couple of slides. This is, again, the inaugural company, Tobii ATI, the eye tracking company. So a very powerful tool that helps spinal cord injury patients or people with cerebral palsy, for example, using eye tracking as a way to really access the world. We worked with this company, and again, it was basically several teams working with the same company. But I just wanted to show this because it gives you a sense of the variety of types of missions that we have within the project and generally that we work on in this type of course. So some of the students worked on societal cost-benefit analysis for allowing people to actually access this device. So looking really at what society gained because these people could be then actively employed and, again, be productive people after having had a severe injury, for example. So they were looking at that specifically. And then the other one was looking more at funding opportunities in the United States for people who needed to purchase the Tobii. And, of course, this is sometimes necessary if this device is not categorized correctly. If it's not deemed to be medically necessary, then people might need to find other ways of actually gaining access to it. So, and, of course, you can imagine coming from the outside, looking into the U.S. Environment of regulations, etc. The insurance system is really a maze and really very difficult to penetrate for people on the outside who are not familiar. So actually what I would say, our students have been of great benefit to these clients as well, trying to help them navigate that maze, if you will. The last group focused more on really executing on the kind of communications, advertising, marketing, social media type of level, and really was helping in terms of how to pitch the company in the United States. So very different tone, different accent to that type of project. But this is just an array of different things that we've been doing in the past. Many of the other companies that we worked with really wanted to, again, enter the U.S. market or expand in the U.S. market, either one of those two. Another company that we worked with that I found to be very worthwhile was this, it's the Molly. It used to be called the Electro Dress, but I think our students were probably part of helping them rename the product. But it's basically a device, a medical device or an outfit that has electrodes on the inside, so you have this electrostimulation going on for kids with cerebral palsy, and they've shown great progress, these kids, and being able to much more easily access their physical capabilities and enhance them in their daily life. So again, very powerful product to work with for sure. Then there's another interesting company, Single Technologies, that we've worked with a couple of times, so they have evolved since. Right now they are developing a really interesting microscope that can help with kind of DNA sequencing very quickly and things like that. So that's the kind of company that right now is kind of not quite kind of blossomed yet, but if the circumstances are right, this can be really, really huge. So again, big variety of different types of companies that we have worked with in the past. This is from a couple of years ago, a very proud moment at the end of the course where all the students were gathered at the U.S. Embassy in Stockholm. We actually did the presentation there to all of the clients. So we have often been invited to come. The U.S. Embassy there has been a great host. And of course, for the students, it's quite spectacular to be able to go to this venue and to have that climactic moment of actually presenting to the client in that location. So that's really how we have ended the trip in general. Any questions so far? I want to talk maybe a little bit more about the nitty-gritty of what the course entails, because this all sounds very glamorous and very abstract probably at this point, but I would assume that you're interested in hearing just a little bit more of the detail maybe of how we're actually getting to the point of being at this moment at the embassy presenting to the client. So, okay. So then the question is, of course, how do we get there? And as I mentioned before, I work a lot with these kinds of consulting projects and help students learn the consulting methodology. We use the hypothesis-driven methodology where we can actually take people who are not necessarily experts in the field and really quickly turn them into very sharp researchers and very sharp consultants. And so it's a great, actually, transferable skill that you will gain in this course that you can use in many other settings, in consulting, but also in any kind of project that you do where you want to have this approach of having a hypothesis driving your research so that you don't have to wheel too far away from the goal of what you want to accomplish. So in terms of the course content, there is certainly some content, as I mentioned before, and this is all happening in a Blackboard environment. So I have narrative PowerPoints, I have videos, readings, other materials to understand some of these particular topics. We do an introduction, the kind of the social cultural context, because that's something you really need to have in order to be successful over there, not only with the clients themselves and the engagement, but also just to be able to run your daily life over there. And of course, it makes it a much more rich experience if you have a little bit of that background. Then we look at the healthcare system, really figuring out what some of the differences are and how it actually works. We look a little bit at the different facets of the healthcare industry where Sweden is strong and really trying to map that out. We look at some of the healthcare clusters. There's a few in Sweden. It's a small country with only about 9 million people. It's fairly large in terms of the area, but not very much so in terms of the population. So a small country, but there's still a few healthcare clusters there that have been growing fairly strong the last couple of years. We also look at sustainable healthcare. As you might know, Sweden is very much ahead when it comes to sustainability, clean technology, those kinds of areas, and that's actually my expertise. I worked a lot with clean tech companies doing these consulting projects, and I work myself in green marketing, so I look at green consumer behavior and studies, international studies on that topic. And of course, I've done some work also in sustainable healthcare, kind of looking at the different facets that are included in that concept. And again, Sweden is very much driving this because they're so far ahead when it comes to sustainability in general. So of course, they have focused on sustainable healthcare. So that's one of the other components that we usually talk about too in the course prior to actually traveling to Sweden. I have a couple other modules in here too. So I do one on international consulting, kind of talking about the hypothesis-driven methodology. I do one on kind of the intro to international marketing strategy. I know that many of the students in this course probably have not taken international marketing. I do teach a course actually, IBIS 6201 on international marketing this summer. And this might be something that you're interested in as well. It's an online course, fully online. But that would be a perfect course to prepare you for the consulting experience in the Sweden course. But just in case not everybody will take that class, I do a little bit of an introduction on international marketing strategy to make sure that students can navigate the main concepts there. And then also we do some training on the research process so that you're fully aware of the different resources that are available through the databases of Gelman Library. I usually do a training session, an online training session on that as well. Because we really need to go beyond just, Google Scholar, those kinds of resources to much more targeted research. Typically, students also do some sort of primary research, not only the secondary research in the library, but they might set up a study of some sort, a survey, run a focus group or something like that to help their clients, or maybe do interviews, things like that. So it's actually very hands-on and very helpful. Lots of transferable skills will be acquired in this course. There's a lot of group work, and this is also something I want to put out there ahead of time. So, again, the client project is really at the center of this experience. So a lot of the work is done really to achieve the best possible actionable recommendations we can for the client or clients. We might have more than one. There's a clear process for how we do this. So we start off with an input report, which is more or less focusing on research. It's a brief kind of research memo where you start doing some of the basic research for your project. And then there's a game plan where you really put together an idea of where you want to go with this project and how you're going to reach your goals and what kind of research you need to do and what information you need. So again, and what your hypotheses might be and so forth that you are going to work towards in your project. There'll be a couple then draft client presentation, mostly written report. In the past, I've also done mock presentations. It's a little bit difficult to do online, but I usually try to make sure I touch base with the students so we know we're on the right track when it comes to the oral presentation as well. Students also are required to chronicle their client engagement. So if you have a meeting with a client, a Skype meeting or something, then you'll be required to just put together a brief memo talking about what you accomplished in the meeting, maybe thinking ahead, what are the implications of what we just talked about, so that there is a little bit of reflection along the way in terms of where you're going with the project. So that's the group work. And then there's also some individual work. I want to make sure it's easy for in-group work that some students take on maybe bigger burdens than others, and vice versa, of course. So I always want to make sure that we have also a sound level of individual work as well. So that's 40% of the grade. There is a peer review, so you'll be actually peer reviewing one of the other team's game plan report, helping them. And again, it's a very collaborative environment because we want to work towards the best possible results for the client. But you will be peer reviewing another report of another team, giving them ideas and so forth. You will also work on a small kind of immersion task and reflection, keeping a log of some of the things that you're doing in country. There's also class participation, so we'll have weekly discussion boards in Blackboard as pertaining to all the topics that I've showed you in the last couple of slides, the different topics that we will be discussing. So that will have a component also of a class discussion or discussion board actually go along before we travel. Some of the cultural visits, we're almost at the end of the presentation now, but some of the things that we typically tend to do, Stockholm has a beautiful old town, really amazing part of the city. Stockholm in general is this extremely beautiful, lots of waterways, it's very clean, orderly, lots of history there. So it's a very pleasurable place to be spending a week. And also I should tell you, because I don't know how familiar you are with Sweden, but typically it's actually, the weather is nice in the summertime. It's not humid and really hot like it is here in DC, which I don't necessarily enjoy so much, but it's quite fresh. It could be anywhere from 22, 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, so quite warm and quite nice at that time of the year. There is a Vasa Museum. One of the key things you need to visit when you go to Stockholm. It's an old ship that sank in the 1600s. It was on its maiden voyage, and it was a very proud moment for the king, but it sank less than 20 minutes out into the harbor. And this is a fascinating story. They've been able to get this huge ship out of the water, and they've really built the whole museum around it. It's really quite breathtaking. And then, of course, we have things like the ABBA Museum. Sometimes we've gone there. There's the Royal Armory. We have a monarchy in Sweden, so there's quite a heritage there with the royalty and nobility. And so we sometimes go to the Royal Palace, which is also absolutely beautiful. There's an ice bar. This is something that you might have heard about. There's an ice hotel in northern Sweden. And there's a smaller kind of replication of that, a bar made out of ice. You will even drink your vodka, of course, in a glass made of ice. So quite an interesting experience. We try a traditional Swedish smorgasbord. You see a photo here from the one that we visited a couple years ago with amazing seafood, and it's really the most traditional Swedish food. And there's always something for everybody, even though you might not have seafood as one of your absolute favorites. but there's lots of variety there, and it's really probably the best snowmobile in Stockholm, I would say, for sure, maybe in the whole of Sweden. We usually cap off the experience with a cruise in the archipelago. Stockholm has a beautiful archipelago. We go out for usually it's a maybe 3-hour trip out into the archipelago, and we have a beautiful dinner on the ship. It's an old steamboat that we usually are able to book for this event. So we're trying to make it quite special, especially at the end when you all have presented and are very relieved and excited about that experience, and try to kind of cap it off that way. Now, there are also some other visits that we do, and these are more
the question regarding some of the cultural visits, like that Alexander had posed, so I put it in the chat box.
Okay. I don't see it yet.
It just asked how far is the Friends Arena, the National Sweden football stadium, from the hotel where we would stay.
Oh, I don't know for sure. But I would say in Stockholm, oops, I think I got the wrong. Sorry. What we will do in Stockholm, you will have actually public transportation passes. So we don't get around typically in a bus. That's just not the way you do it in Sweden. I mean, some trips going to other countries would have like a private coach. And typically in Sweden, we really don't do that because that's just not the way to do it. We want to be sustainable. We want to use the public transportation, and it works really great. So with these passes, you can get anywhere you want to go in Stockholm, and we'll certainly help you if you have specific interests to make sure that you can figure out a way to go there. And of course, there's taxis and other ways to get around as well, but the public transportation system is really great. So that's what I would recommend. And there's also in Stockholm, there's this other arena where they have a lot of events. It's called the Globe. So it's really a very breathtaking building as well. So lots of things to see, lots of modern architecture and lots of history at the same time. And that's really kind of the core of what Sweden is, in my opinion. This whole kind of tug of war between the old and the new, the urban and the rural, high tech and the other side, the primitive side of life. So people really are torn in different directions. So it's one of the most modern societies you can imagine. That people are very much anchored in history. It has been an agricultural society for a very long time, and only with the last generation or so, people were fully kind of uprooted and moved into the city. So a lot of people, actually 47% of Swedes have a key to a summer home, and that is usually the family's old farm, and they would go there and spend a lot of time. Sweden has very generous policies around vacation, maternity and paternity leave, those kinds of things. So people tend to really value the kind of the life quality in general much more so than only materialism, for sure. So, but it's interesting. That's kind of tug of war, and I think that's why Sweden is so much ahead in sustainability and clean tech, right? Because it's all about preserving nature, but also doing it with the highest level of technology and sophistication. So it's a very intriguing country in many ways. So yeah, and then some of the other site visits, you can see kind of the idea around this. We've talked about the Sweden Institute before. There's something called Stockholm Science City. They're building a whole new city that is just all focused around science, but it also includes, living space for people. But they're hoping to attract the best and the brightest to Stockholm through this science city. And we usually go there to see or hear about how they are developing this whole concept. And then we go to interest organizations, branch organizations such as Swedish MedTech, for example, Center for Technology in Medicine and Health. That's for the Karolinska Institute. And then there's usually visits with the Swedish Parliament as well. So those are the kinds of visits, very, major, different kinds of site visits. But again, hopefully getting something to everybody. And these are just some happy moments. Ice bar. We got our own little GW menu at one of the restaurants, which is called Snaps, and I think they even got the snaps there. And this is Old Town, and in the middle, of course, in the center, we have very happy students. I have contact, I think, with most of those guys still. So. Yeah, so that's really what I wanted to go through with you, but I'd be very happy to answer any questions you might have, and any thoughts of, any interest you have that you wanted to share and so forth. But make sure you use the chat box, because the last chat I have here is the one about the Cato. Here we go. There's a little bit more coming now. Refugees. Okay. Well, honestly, I have not been back to Sweden since the influx started. I've heard, I still have my whole family there. My parents, both of my sisters, their families, everybody's back there. I think it's very evident and obvious that there's a lot of change happening, and I think some of that has settled a little bit. I can't tell you where we're going to be in August. I don't know. But again, as a whole, it's a very safe country, and we've not really had any safety concerns. With the students, you can really roam around and be, open and safe in most areas in Sweden. So, and I think the students in general have felt very safe. But again, I haven't felt the change. I just, read the newspapers. I hear what's going on from my family and friends. But again, it's more palpable when you're actually there in person. And I haven't been since this summer, earlier this summer. Last summer. So I can't tell you 100%, what the real life impact is at this point.
And just to chime in, from kind of our office perspective, we do monitor any country where we're sending students. So if there were any kind of security concerns to arise, either through the influx of refugees or through something completely different, that's something that we are always keeping an eye on, and would definitely let students know as soon as we hear something. But as of right now, we are proceeding with this course as planned, and we'll continue to do so. But a very good question.
Any other questions? So can I just find out from you guys, are you all in the healthcare MBA program, or are you in other programs as well? I wasn't quite clear on that. Maybe I just missed something also in the conversation earlier. But
so it looks like someone asked if the slides can be shared, and they certainly can. So that's not a problem. And then it looks like, it looks like pretty much everyone's here from the healthcare MBA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of the students in the past have definitely been in the healthcare MBA program. Like I said, I used to teach global perspectives and international management up until 2014 when I did the last edition of this course. But then was, pulled in other directions with other classes. So the students lined up and they knew me, and, it was no problem recruiting students. But I would say, this time I can really need some help from you guys, because I don't know the students, and they don't know me, and are probably not even quite aware of the course. So if you have friends in the program who might be interested, I'd be happy to talk to them in person. We can send out this presentation, and you can share that. If you need the slides themselves, maybe even that would help. We're going to try to get this. I think this is recorded, so they can get that. I have a flyer that talks a little bit about the course as well. So anything to do to recruit it. And of course, from your perspective, it'll be more fun to have your friends go. It's really a great experience also because there's so much teamwork, and it's almost like, you go in and you accomplish something that is really palpable and real, and, it's like competition is very bond building between the students too. So it's intensive and exciting.
So I don't know if you saw Professor Helm there with a question in terms of if there's a limit in the number of students that will be accepted for the program.
Yeah, well, last time I taught the course, I had 30 applicants, and because it's consulting, we actually had to limit it to 20. So with those 20, I was able to have 4 different clients and groups of 5 students each working towards each one of those clients. So I would say in order to keep it, keep the quality level and kind of the realism around being able to also provide really great work to the clients, that's probably where we're going to go. So 20 would be the absolute maximum. So that would also make it kind of intimate. And ideally, if we can keep it at 15 or 16, that'd probably be better. But I think that really depends on the program statutes and things like that. But I would say not above 20.
But there is, just to chime in, there is a minimum number of students that we do need for programs to run. So we're really glad to have you guys participating in this webinar. We only have, I think, about 5 applications open right now. So if you guys are interested, I highly encourage you to apply and to talk to your classmates and encourage them to apply as well, because we do need to reach a threshold of 14 students participating in the program for the program to be approved. So if please, we'll share the slides and we'll work to get this recording, in a transferable form so that if any of your colleagues, miss the presentation and want to hear it, they certainly can. So that's something we definitely wanted to encourage as well. And there's a question regarding the deadline. So this is a good segue. The application deadline is going to be February 28th, which is a Sunday. So that is a week from this upcoming Sunday. And the application, if you don't mind, Professor Helm, I'll just pop over and share my screen.
I was going to say also, I think Sadia had a question. It's actually fine to email me if you want to do that. So anytime, and we can talk if you have more questions, or just email if there's anything specific that you're wondering about. So absolutely.
And so what I'll do now is just really quick show you guys the application, so that way you can see that. So let me share my screen really quick. So the application is all done online. So you can see this is the online application page. And so this is where you can really find a lot of information on the program. These are things that, Professor Helm mentioned in her presentation in terms of the course activities. This is a 4.5 credit course, and it counts towards your elective credit that you have as part of the Healthcare MBA program. So you have a certain bucket of elective credits that you can choose, to use as you wish. And so these 4.5 credits would fulfill the elective base of your degree. Here we also have that the application deadline is February 28th, so that's midnight Eastern Standard Time on February 28th that application closes. And you can access the application by going on this page and clicking Apply Now. So actually at the end of this session, when we close the webinar, you're automatically going to be prompted to the application page. So if you like what you heard and you want to get started on an application, you can do so right at the end of this session, just by clicking the Apply Now button. And then further down, you'll see information on Professor Helm. Here's her full bio, and you also have access to her email address. So as she mentioned before, she's happy to take emails, so feel free to email her using that address. We also have draft syllabi and itineraries for this program. So if you want to get, a bit more information on what Professor Helm had mentioned, you can do that looking at the syllabus and the itinerary. And then we have a question here from the chat. So someone said they were unable to log into the application page. When you log in, be sure to use just the first half of your GW email. It's really important to use your GW email address. So for example, in Professor Helm's case, she would log in with A. Helm instead of her full email address, and then the password should be the same as your GW email address. So if you're continuing to have any problems, our email address is also down here at the bottom, and you can feel free to email us, and we can work with you to make sure that you can access the application. But that's one thing I wanted to mention. And then some students may have questions regarding costs. And so the cost estimate is included on this page, so let me pop over to it right now. You can see that we have broken down the budget into two sections. So there is a billable section, and that is things that we will arrange on your behalf. So those are things like the hotel in Stockholm, all the cultural events, the tours that Professor Helm mentioned. There are some meals that we cover for students, and then the in-country transportation, which is things like your metro tickets and other things. So all of those, we'll make those arrangements for you, and then we'll charge you a fee for those expenses. So that's the $2,117.71, which, because we charge insurance, everyone is enrolled in international insurance, so that makes the number not evenly round. But just to give you an idea, that's what we estimate currently the program fee to be. That'll show up on your GW bill. So when you're enrolled in the 4.5 credit course, it'll also trigger this program fee or this billable subtotal that you see here on the web page. And then we also have out-of-pocket expenses. So these are things that you'll arrange on your own. And so big item is your airfare. So we don't do a group airfare. What we'll do is Professor Helm will give you, okay, be in Stockholm this day at this time, and students can, kind of choose whichever way they wish to arrive by that date and time that she said. And we do this because a lot of students choose to really take advantage of being over kind of on that side of the world and may travel before or after the program. And so we really wanted to give students that flexibility. So you'll arrange your own airfare. There are obviously meals that won't be included. So some dinners you may have free or lunches. And so we provided an estimate as to what you could expect to spend for those. And then, in-country transportation, so getting from the airport to the hotel when you arrive, or if you do any kind of auxiliary, travel or sightseeing in your free time, we try to give you, at least an estimate as to what you can expect to spend. We always try to estimate on the high end, so really, kind of you're flexible, your budget, so this number could definitely be lower, and we just want to give students a ballpark idea as to what they can expect in terms of cost. If any of you are using financial aid for your tuition, do know that our office is happy to provide support letters to students because you can request additional financial aid in order to participate in these programs. So you can take out some additional loans to cover these additional expenses for actually, kind of traveling to Sweden and participating in the program. So if you're interested in that, definitely let us know, and we're happy to draft that support letter for you. So does anyone have any other questions that we haven't answered? All right, it looks like we're good. Professor Helm, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, just that if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. We can email. And again, if you have other people you think might be interested, send them my way or give them information, and I'd be very happy to talk to them, and hopefully we can get a great group together and go for an exciting trip to Sweden together.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, so I think with that, we'll end the session, but just know that once you do finish, once you do X out of and we end the session, it'll automatically take you to that application page. So consider starting an application now. As I said before, the application deadline is February 28th, which is a Sunday, so that's coming up. And if you know of any colleagues, please spread the word about this program, and we're happy to answer questions by email or over the phone if you have them later on.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time, and hope to stay in touch.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.